Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery. You're watching Tuesday's Tip of the Week, number 86. This week's video is going to be a little different. I am going to give us some info. I'm going to go over pretty briefly my indoor arrow setup, what I'm running, why I'm running that, and where I got to everything. And then the main part of this video is actually going to be torture testing these vanes after an unfortunate demise of these two arrows. I actually was shooting at a 3D target and I had two arrows into it. Well, I had one arrow in it. When the second arrow hit it, 3D target spun and fell, augured these into the ground and snapped them off in the target. So we're gonna find a good use to them and do some torture testing. I've got a blowtorch, a pair of pliers, a rubber band, and some special content involving my truck as well to just see what happens. But our members only video this week is going to be going over how I find my point weight and the length of my arrows, what I'm looking for when I'm adjusting all of that and setting that up. And then we're also gonna go over 3 versus 4 Fletch, and I'm gonna give you a tip that Paige Pierce gave to me on determining how to set that up and what I'm doing with it. Our YouTube Shorts, the first video that will come out this week, is going to be going over cam timing and adjustments and helping ourselves with our aim. So having the top cam hit first or hit second, what it's doing to our aim, how to adjust that whenever we're seeing certain things on target. And then our second YouTube Shorts that comes out this week, we're gonna talk about our bow hand and our bow hand's wrist and what we wanna be doing with that, and some little cues and tips that I can help you on that as well. Let's get started, guys. All right, guys. Quick rundown here of my indoor arrow and what I'm using. So this is a Black Eagle PS26. This is a 400 spine. I am running this 27¼ inches from carbon to carbon. I've got a Biter Hunter, the 19.2 symmetrical nock in here, and running a bushing with it. This was a Black Eagle bushing. And then for my point, I've got Top Hat points, and I'm using their weight system that we can screw into the end of these points, and that'll be more talked about in our members only video. I'm doing a 3 Fletch arrow configuration, so it's a little different than what I've done in the past. These are the Fletch 360 vanes, the FFP 360. Switched back to these this year. I used these as well as their FFP 187s for a long time, and their, I believe it's the 225 for a long time as well on outdoor skinnier arrows. These are amazing vanes. They don't have, they're not soft, so they don't have as much flex as some other vanes. When you're shooting outdoors, especially at distance, that's really good. It takes a lot of the parachuting effect out of these and a lot of the flutter out of them. But I've also noticed that on my indoor arrows, because they're not laying over and giving to the forces when the arrow is going through the bow and coming out towards the target, it's spinning the arrow a little bit more and it's stabilizing it a lot quicker. So I'm noticing that I'm getting a little bit better arrow flight, especially when I'm making some mistakes. So this is the arrow that I will be running indoors this year. And now let's get to the fun part of the video where we torture test these vanes and see if we can set some stuff on fire. All right, as I mentioned in the introduction, I've got 2 of these arrows. I'm gonna do a little bit different things to each of them. I'm gonna set this one aside for now. I wanted to do some replicating as close as possible to certain scenarios that you would actually come into contact whenever you're shooting. I'm gonna take them a little bit more extreme than what they would be when you were shooting the arrow, and honestly, I'm curious to see how they hold up and you know, in comparison. So all of these vanes, they're stuck on there really well. I use a super simple process. I've got arrow wipes. They're actually AAE arrow wipes because I had a pack of those. Wipe the arrow shaft off before I put these vanes on. There's a primer pin I will use on the vane itself, and then I use super glue, the Ultra Gel super glue, and I'll put it on there and some little drops going across it, smooth everything out with the end of that super glue nozzle or whatever you want to call that, and then I fletch them up with a VaneMaster Pro. They are 3-degree left helical, so they're pretty stout the way they're on there. But if you've shot some arrows you will have some times when they go through a target bail. So you may have, you know, something that passes through, or who knows what, you know, some kind of target that's not working well, or something's happening with it. So if I can put this rubber band around here and hold it in place and bend the crap out of these, take this off here in a few minutes, let's see how it holds up. Let's see if it'll snap itself back to shape, or does it need a hair dryer to replicate like being out in the sun or some heat on them, or let's just see what happens there. All right, guys, I've given this about 15 minutes now. So I'm gonna take the rubber band off and see what things look like 15 minutes later. All right, as expected, there's definitely some curvature to the veins. The cool thing is they're not destroyed, and honestly, as I'm showing you this, that's crazy. They're actually going pretty close back to how they were. That's nuts. Okay. I actually thought that we would need to take like a hair dryer or something and heat these up. I've had some veins in the past where I do some pass-throughs like that. Out in the sun, they would heat up and be fine. I would just switch to some different arrows. These actually look like they're gonna work pretty well. So I can definitely feel where the rubber band was. You can see it too. It's a little bit off shape still. I'm assuming these would come completely back to normal or extremely close to back to normal on their own, especially if it was just a pass through a target, because they're not going to be in there for 15 minutes and they're not going to have a vice grip, you know, on them from a rubber band that's really tight. When I'm running my fingers up and down this vein, I can feel that the rubber band was right here, and it almost, it's not stretched, but it kind of has that thinner stretched out feeling, like you just pulled on this and stretched it out. So it's interesting that that's kind of how it feels, but I'm pretty impressed actually. I mean, we've got two of them here. I'll let you see like what they look like, you know, vein to vein, and let you see kind of how that all works. So pretty impressed. That was test number one. Let's try another one. All right, our next test has some fire involved and some water. So if you have ever been to the South, or maybe you live in the South, in that July, August time frame, you will know that the sun is like a blowtorch, and it's awful. And it's humid, like humid, especially further south you get. So I'm going to blowtorch these veins, dump them in some water. I don't honestly know if they're gonna catch fire or not, but I'm gonna blowtorch these veins, stick them in water, pull them out, and then I'm gonna grab a pair of pliers and see if I can yank these veins off or misshape them, or see what kind of disaster we have with them. So see what's going on. That's nuts. Definitely melted that one down. Not going to do as much on these others. All right. Have you ever smelled burning plastic? It's a unique smell. Okay. Yeah. All right. This first vein here is definitely definitely a little messed up. So it's that's the one that caught on fire. So definitely that one's not going to work anymore. This one has a little bit of melting on it. This one not so much. One thing to note though is that they're a little wavy. They didn't really pop them back or anything like a hairdryer, but very well melted. So grab some pliers now, see what we can do. I'm gonna end up snapping the arrow before I pull these off. Oh, I got some. A little bit of the vein came off. Oh, it's still melty. It's soft. I probably can't see this, it's not gonna focus, but it's soft and coming out. So that was the really bad one. All right. That was about all I could do to pull that off. I got it pulled off. You can actually see on there where I was holding it with the pliers, because that other piece on there that melted off, but it didn't misshape the vein. I literally ripped this off a pair of pliers. You can tell where it was with the pliers, but it didn't misshape the vein. So it held its shape. That's actually pretty impressive. I'm gonna pull from the middle, maybe a little bit down from the middle, see if there's any difference. That one was a little easier to pull off from the middle, not from the ends. All right, I had to pull really hard on that. Okay, you can see how hard I pulled on that, but the vein held its shape. It didn't drag it out, it didn't do anything crazy. Same with this one here. Everything held its shape. So pretty tough veins. They're not gonna stretch out on you and lose their shape because something happened. Honestly, I'm willing to bet that you could shoot another arrow through one of these veins, pull the arrow out, and I bet it almost heals itself completely back up like a target. So that's pretty cool. That may be a test that I do in the future. We'll see what happens with the second arrow with the other tests that we have today. All right, guys, on our next test, we're gonna replicate an unfortunate event. If you've ever been in a tournament, maybe an arrow fell out of your quiver, maybe it fell out of your vehicle, ended up on the ground. Let's see what would happen if we run it over. See if the veins would stand up to that, see if the arrow would stand up to that. Let's find out what happens. All right, so I don't advise that happening. It might be better if the parking lot wasn't concrete. I think you could survive it and I think it would be okay. If it was dirt, it would just auger the arrow down in there. But because it's concrete, the arrow did not make it. The arrow sounded like it was a confetti egg on Easter being crushed over someone's head. So it's pretty messed up here. But the veins still look good. In fact, it doesn't even look like anything happened to the vein. So I don't know that I'm happy with that test. It was a fail for the arrow, but the veins are still good, and I was kind of hoping to destroy this one a little bit closer to what the burn vein was before. So don't know how well this is going to work. We may never find this arrow again, but I have one more test that I want to find out what happens on. I don't know that that worked as well as I was hoping. My guess is it probably shot it out as soon as I went over it, but still was curious what would happen. So we'll get this to focus here on this arrow. As you can see, definitely did some damage. That's probably where the tire was when it went across the arrow. The arrow itself is mangled. That's wild. But I mean, the vein between concrete and tire still held up a lot better than I thought it would. All right, guys, that's our video. Some torture testing on these Fletch veins. They held up way better than I thought they would. Appreciate you watching. Hope you got some good out of this. Hope it was fun. Merry Christmas. This video is coming out a week prior, but you won't have another one until the day after Christmas from me. So I appreciate everybody this year for watching this channel and all the support you've given to me over this time frame. It's been awesome this year. So keep an eye out for that members only video this week, as well as the YouTube shorts. Make sure you like this video. It helps the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Really appreciate that if you would. So thank you again, guys. I'll see you soon.